Keith Richards is a rock legend whose life has been defined by rebellion, raw talent, and an uncompromising honesty. As the guitarist of the Rolling Stones, he helped shape the sound of a generation, writing riffs that became immortal anthems and living a life that most would consider too wild to survive. But beyond the glory, the fame, and the legendary tours, Keith has never been shy about speaking his mind, especially when it comes to music he doesn't respect. Now, at 81, Richards has finally revealed something fans have long wondered about: the bands he genuinely despises. These aren't casual dislikes or petty opinions. These are acts that, in his eyes, completely missed the mark, showing everything he finds wrong in modern music. From overproduced sounds to shallow lyrics, Keith's critiques are as brutally honest as his guitar solos, sharp, precise, and unforgettable. For decades, fans have speculated about who rubbed the legendary guitarist the wrong way. But now, he's finally put the rumors to rest, naming 7 bands that he simply couldn't stand. Some of them might surprise you, others might make you nod in agreement, but all of them reveal a truth about Keith. He doesn't just love music, he feels it deeply. This is more than just a list of grudges. It's a glimpse into the mind of a man who has witnessed the rise and fall of countless bands, survived the chaos of rock and roll, and yet still possesses the courage to speak honestly about what he hates. Keith Richards isn't just a guitarist. He's a living testament to rock and roll itself. A man whose life has been defined by wild tours, iconic riffs, and an unapologetic refusal to conform. Born in 1943 in Dartford, England, Richards' childhood was far from glamorous. He discovered music at an early age, finding solace in the guitar and a deep passion for rhythm and blues. By the early 1960s, he had formed a partnership with Mick Jagger that would change music forever. Together, they created the Rolling Stones, a band that embodied rebellion, raw emotion, and an unflinching commitment to authenticity. Over the decades, Richards' career has been legendary. He survived the excesses of fame, addiction, and scandal, all while crafting some of the most enduring riffs in rock history. Songs like Satisfaction, Jumpin' Jack Flash, and Gimme Shelter didn't just define a generation. They influenced every guitarist who came after him. His style is instantly recognizable, gritty, blues-infused, and rebellious. But along with a love for music comes an equally strong set of opinions. Keith has never hesitated to voice his thoughts, whether about the music industry, fellow musicians, or bands that fail to capture the essence of rock. Recently, at 81, Richards has finally opened up about 7 bands he claims he simply hated. This isn't about petty rivalries or fleeting annoyances. It's about artistic integrity. For Richards, music is not just sound. It's emotion, authenticity, and the ability to touch the soul. When a band misses that mark, he doesn't hold back. Fans have long speculated which modern acts might make his list. Some guessed overproduced pop bands. Others suspected one-hit wonders or groups that rely more on image than talent. Richards' answer, however, reveals more about his values than it does about the bands themselves. He respects raw talent, emotional depth, and the ability to connect with listeners. Bands that are polished but soulless, trendy but hollow, or technically perfect but emotionally vacant often draw his sharpest criticism. Interestingly, Keith's disdain isn't just about the music, it's about the attitude, too. He admires musicians who are committed, authentic, and willing to take risks. He despises those who chase fame, follow trends blindly, or produce music that feels manufactured. In his eyes, rock and roll isn't a commodity. It's a way of life. His list of 7 bands spans genres and decades, proving that his opinions are not rooted in nostalgia alone. While he's lived through the golden era of rock and witnessed countless transformations in the music industry, Richards' perspective remains grounded in what truly matters: heart, soul, and authenticity. What makes this revelation fascinating isn't just who made the list. It's the insight it provides into the mind of a man who has seen it all. Keith Richards' life has been about surviving the chaos, creating legendary music, and staying true to himself. And his critiques are a continuation of that philosophy. He doesn't compromise. He doesn't sugarcoat, and he never fears saying what he really thinks. For fans of rock, this list isn't just gossip. It's a window into the tastes and principles of one of music's most uncompromising figures. Every dislike has a reason, every comment carries weight, and every band he names reflects his enduring commitment to the music he loves. At 81, Keith Richards doesn't mince words. When asked to name the bands he has despised the most, his answers were blunt, unapologetic, and unmistakably honest. For Richards, music isn't just entertainment, it's authenticity, emotion, and a connection that transcends mere sound. Bands that lack that soul, he explains, simply don't deserve respect. First on his list are the overproduced pop rock acts that dominate radio waves today. According to Keith, these bands sound polished, but lack soul. They all sound the same, he remarked in a recent interview, shaking his head. It's like they've been put together in a factory. There's no grit, no dirt, no life. Music should bite. It should feel alive, not like someone pressed a button and called it a song. He admires rawness, the messy, thrilling unpredictability of a live guitar riff or a raspy human voice. To him, perfection without passion is empty. Next, Richards called out bands who rely too heavily on image and theatrics rather than talent. He has little patience for groups that care more about makeup, costumes, and viral videos than writing music that resonates. I don't need a light show or a costume, he said. Give me a riff that hits me in the chest, a drum beat that rattles my bones, and a singer who's honest. That's all I ask. For Keith, style cannot replace substance, a principle he has lived by his entire career. Some of the bands he named are well-known chart toppers, which makes his disdain even more surprising. He admitted that commercial success doesn't impress him. Just because you've sold 1 million records doesn't mean you're making music, he said. Some of the most famous bands I've ever heard? Empty. All flash. No fire. Fans of these acts might be shocked. But Richards is steadfast. He doesn't let popularity sway his opinions. Keith also expressed frustration with bands that imitate other artists rather than forging their own path. Copying riffs, mimicking vocal styles, or borrowing stage personas without originality, he explained, is worse than failure. It's laziness. Rock and roll is about rebellion, about carving your own lane, he said. If you're just copying, you're dead before you start. In his eyes, authenticity is everything. And imitation is a betrayal of the craft. Interestingly, his list spans genres and eras, showing that his criticism isn't rooted in nostalgia or bitterness. From 1990s alternative bands to modern pop-punk groups, Richards doesn't discriminate by age or style. What matters is soul, honesty, and originality. Bands that have lost these qualities are doomed, in his opinion, regardless of fame or fan base. Throughout the interview, Keith emphasized that his dislikes come from a place of respect for music, not personal grudges. He isn't bitter, he just has very high standards. I've been lucky to play with some of the greatest musicians in the world, he said. I've seen what dedication and talent look like. Anything less just irritates me. For fans, that statement explains a lot. His list of hated bands is a reflection of his unwavering commitment to music itself. Finally, Keith admitted that naming these 7 bands wasn't easy. He respects effort, creativity, and passion, even in music he doesn't enjoy. But some bands, he concluded, fail to meet the basic standards of what music should be. And he's not afraid to call them out. Bluntly, honestly, and with the authority of someone who has lived through the very best and worst of rock history. For music lovers, this list isn't just gossip. It's a rare glimpse into the mind of one of rock's most uncompromising figures. A man who has survived decades of fame, chaos, and change, and still refuses to settle for mediocrity. Keith Richards' 7 most hated bands are more than a list. They're a lesson in integrity, passion, and the uncompromising power of authentic music. Keith Richards' disdain for certain bands is never arbitrary. Every gripe he has is rooted in decades of experience, decades spent touring, recording, and witnessing the rise and fall of musical acts. When he names the bands he hates, it's not just personal opinion. It's a reflection of what rock and roll should be versus what it often has become. One key reason is the over-reliance on studio technology. Richards has seen firsthand the difference between a live performance and a polished studio track. To him, bands that rely on auto-tune, samples, and production tricks are cheating the audience. Music isn't supposed to be edited to perfection, he said. It's supposed to be raw, imperfect, and real. When a band hides behind technology, it tells me they're not confident in their own talent. The bands he names often fall into this trap, talented individuals in theory, but lacking the courage to show what they can do without gimmicks. Another reason Richards dislikes certain acts is their obsession with image over substance. Over the decades, he's watched countless bands focus more on fashion, stage theatrics, or social media presence than on songwriting. Some bands look like they stepped out of a magazine, but the music is hollow, he explained. I don't need fancy haircuts, flashy costumes, or viral videos. Give me something that resonates, that shakes me, that has life. His irritation isn't just aesthetic. It's philosophical. Music, for him, is a form of expression, not a marketing tool. Originality is another sore point. Keith admires musicians who take risks, break conventions, and define their own sound. He has little patience for bands that imitate successful predecessors without innovation. Copying a riff, a style, or a look is lazy, he said. You might sell a few records, but you won't last. And that's why some of these bands annoy me. They're all surface and no soul. He recounted instances from the 1990s and 2000s when groups borrowed heavily from iconic artists without adding their own identity, leaving him frustrated. Interestingly, some of the bands he criticized were commercially successful. But Richards' critique is never about popularity. It's about authenticity. A band can be famous, but if the music is empty or formulaic, it earns his ire. Fame doesn't impress me, he said. I've seen legends and nobody's alike. Talent and honesty are what matter. This is why his list includes bands that might shock casual fans. They may have sold millions, but in his eyes, they betrayed the spirit of music. Keith also cited inconsistency as a factor. Bands that can deliver a brilliant album but crumble in live performances frustrate him. He's a man who has survived decades of touring. He knows that true musicianship is tested on stage, not just in a studio. If a band sounds perfect on a record but cannot recreate it live, he sees it as a failure of commitment and integrity. Finally, Richards made it clear that his dislikes are tempered by respect for the art form. He isn't bitter. He's passionate. I've loved music my entire life, he said. I've also seen the worst of it. Calling out these bands isn't personal. It's about preserving what music should be. His list, then, is as much a lesson as it is a judgment. It's a warning to future musicians about the importance of authenticity, originality, and heart. For fans, understanding why Keith hates these bands offers insight into his values as an artist. It shows that decades of experience have given him a clear standard. Music must be raw, honest, and alive. Anything less earns his criticism. And for someone who has witnessed rock's greatest highs and lowest lows, that judgment carries weight. Keith Richards' opinions about the bands he despises are more than just gripes from a legendary guitarist. They're a blueprint for what he believes music should be. At 81, his years of experience have given him a perspective that is both brutally honest and deeply instructive. For modern musicians, his critique is less about negativity and more about survival. How to create music that endures rather than fades into forgettable trends. Richards' first piece of advice is simple. Be authentic. Don't try to be what someone else wants you to be, he said. Don't chase trends, don't imitate. Find your voice and stick to it. He emphasized that fans can sense insincerity immediately. People aren't fooled by appearances or gimmicks. They want honesty. They want to feel that someone is living what they're singing. For him, authenticity is the cornerstone of lasting art. A band may sell millions of records, but if they lack truth in their music, their legacy will be short-lived. The second lesson is to value raw talent over perfection. Richards has witnessed entire generations of musicians rely on studio effects to fix flaws in their performance. While technology can be useful, he insists it should never replace genuine ability. A riff played live, with all its imperfections and grit, is worth more than 1,000 polished recordings, he explained. It's alive, it's real. That's what touches people, not a computer-generated note. Thirdly, Keith emphasizes the importance of risk-taking. Many bands he criticized play it safe, following formulas that guarantee radio play or chart success. But rock and roll, he reminds us, was born from rebellion and experimentation. If you're not challenging yourself, you're not doing your job, he said. Even failure is better than producing music that leaves nobody moved. His own career is a testament to this philosophy. Countless risky tours, unconventional riffs, and raw stage performances shaped his legend. Richards also warns about letting image overshadow music. He has little patience for bands whose identity is built solely on visuals, marketing, or viral appeal. Clothes fade, videos get old, but music lives, he explained. He encourages artists to focus on songwriting, musicianship, and emotional connection above everything else. For him, legacy is built by what remains in the ears and hearts of listeners, not the headlines or social media likes. Finally, he stresses the value of longevity through dedication. Keith has survived decades of tours, excess, and the changing music industry because he remains committed to his craft. For young artists, he advises patience, persistence, and a willingness to learn from failures. Don't rush it, he said. Don't get distracted by fame. Focus on your music, perfect your skills, and the rest will follow. The legacy of Keith Richards' opinions extends beyond a simple list of hated bands. It is a reflection of his unyielding standards and his love for music in its purest form. By calling out mediocrity and superficiality, he not only entertains with his blunt honesty, but also educates the next generation of musicians about the principles that matter most. Fans and critics alike can learn from his wisdom. Keith's perspective reminds us that true artistry requires courage, authenticity, and resilience. It's a warning and an inspiration rolled into one. Avoid shortcuts. Stay true to your voice and never compromise the heart of your music. In the end, Keith Richards' critiques are less about hate and more about legacy, his own and that of the music he loves. He may have named the bands he despises, but through that list, he has also outlined a path for musicians who want to endure. His life and opinions stand as a testament to what it truly means to live and breathe rock and roll, passionately, honestly, and without apology.